Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to Small Group. We're in week 2 of our series, Jesus is Greater, and we'll be discussing this week's message in just a few minutes. But first, let's start with our opening icebreaker question. Press pause when you see it on the screen, and group leaders, don't forget to record your attendance. Now let's continue our discussion on the 5 Gs. Remember, the 5 Gs are those 5 key areas of life that we work on constantly so that we can become more fully devoted to Christ and more of what God wants us to be. This week, we're talking about the 5th and final G, which is giving. And a lot of people get nervous whenever a church starts talking about money, but I'll just say that's rightfully so, because a lot of churches have done a really bad job on this, and we've made people feel like all we're concerned about is getting our hands on your money. Well, you can relax. That's not what this discussion is about at all. This is not about something God wants from you, but what He wants for you. Now, this usually happens around the holidays, but you ever notice that when you're giving generously to somebody else, it just feels really good? Or like when you watch one of those reality TV shows where they give away a house or this huge donation to someone in need. It makes you emotional, right? You ever wondered why that is? Well, I think it's because when we're being generous, we're most like God. And when we're more like God, we are becoming more of who we were meant to be. We're starting to realize more of God's purpose in our lives. So this is a challenge for those of us who follow Christ and desire to be more of who He wants us to be. We have to live in such a way that we are beginning to loosen the grip that money and material things have on us. We have to order our lives so that we can be more generous. Practically, that means we just keep our spending under control, or we save appropriately so that we don't have to live under that paycheck-to-paycheck stress all the time. We avoid debt. And then lastly, we give away a portion of what we've been blessed with. It's really about living a lifestyle that helps us become less dependent on money and more dependent on God. So, how you doing on that? Press pause and discuss these questions together. Press play when you're done. You know, it's always been fascinating to me, and maybe you've noticed this too. It seems to me that there's a disconnect in the way that we talk about the people that we admire or the people that we consider to have led an extraordinary life and the way most of us go about living our lives. In other words, the things we often point to that we admire in people are often the exact opposite of the way we tend to behave. For example, at every funeral I've ever been to, people admire the same things about their lost loved one. They talk about how much they loved other people, how much they cared, how much they did on behalf of someone else. Because that's what we admire. That's what we consider to be a well-lived life. Unselfishness, turning away from this me-first attitude and living for the good of someone else. Whenever we honor people in public, or we give out an award, or we highlight the people we call heroes, we never recognize their drive or tenacity to climb the social ladder or to create more wealth for themselves. We focus on their sacrifice and on their service. But now let's be real. Left to ourselves, most of us don't naturally go that way. Given the choice, most of the time I go with my own self-interest, which is the exact opposite of what I respect and what I admire in other people. So, as we learned on Sunday, Jesus is faced with 3 temptations to side with His own self-interest, and then He overcomes them. And we applaud that. We all can see it's the right call. But when I'm given choices that are very similar, well, it's not so simple for me to say no. But this is another area where the way of Jesus is greater than any other way of life. Jesus constantly chooses the path of service and sacrifice. He denies Himself what is best for Him in favor of what is best for others, namely, you and me. It's just another way that Jesus turned the kingdom of this world upside down. He said greatness isn't achieved by striving after greatness. Greatness comes when I give my life away for the sake of others. Because I can live for myself and gain everything in the whole world and still be left with nothing in the end. But when I embrace Jesus' upside-down kingdom and I give my life away, that's when I gain everything. Let's talk about this together. Here's your questions for this week, and we'll see you guys next time.